I booked 2 round-trip flights to Asia for $0. And how did I do it? Credit card points. When my wife and I decided that we wanted to go to Japan and Korea for the summer, we had to figure out how to get there, and I didn't want to pay cash. The cheapest round-trip flights I could find for 2 people were over $3,000, but we paid $0 using Chase points and an American Express credit. In previous videos, I talked about how to combine your points with your spouse in order to get more Chase points on one account, and I also talked about how to transfer out your Chase points to travel partners. Those videos were all in preparation for this one, where I will be booking the flight using Chase points that I converted into United miles. I could do all this because I hold the Chase Sapphire Preferred credit card. You could do this too if you hold the Chase Sapphire Preferred, the Chase Sapphire Reserve, or the Chase Business Inc. Preferred. Where we left off, we had 140,000 United miles in our account, and that is from transferring 134,000 Chase points over to the United account, and we just had like 6,000 miles already in there. Before I found out that United was the perfect airline to take for this trip, I scanned basically every site that I could find. I was looking at all the different airlines that fly to Asia and back, and eventually I was led to find that United had the best deal at the time. It was 35,000 points per person each way, so it was going to be 70,000 points for the 2 people one way, and then 70,000 points going back. Even though 140,000 points is a steep price to pay, especially when it's an economy seat for both of us, I was more than happy to make the redemption because I really did not want to pay over $3,000 for these flights. The trip by itself was already going to cost quite a bit, and I didn't want to throw an extra $3,000 expense on top of it. Let's go in and make the booking, and I'll explain my process through that, and then at the end I'm going to tell you the cents per point I got as a valuation for this booking. So after my extensive research, I found that it was going to be best to fly from Phoenix to Tokyo on May 2nd and back home from Seoul to LAX on June 7th. I had to go through United's advanced search to select these dates, and once that was all punched in, I was ready to get started. And yes, I am leaving from Phoenix and I'm coming back to LA, so it doesn't quite match up there, but I'll explain that later. When I clicked find flights, I was actually searching this for the cash price, and wow, to my surprise, United did not have any good options when it came to booking your flight with dollars on this one. One way it was going to cost over $5,000, so that means for the round trip over $11,000. That is completely insane. I would never pay that cash price. If I was so loyal to United, I still would not do this. I do believe that booking this trip less than 1 month before the departure date definitely has something to do with those sky-high prices. So far in my travel journey, I don't really have any status with airlines, and so it wouldn't really be that big of a deal to switch over to the cheapest option I found, which is Hawaiian Airlines for $3,300. Definitely not ideal, so I'm very happy that I have points. So let's switch over to miles, and you can see it's going to be a lot more favorable to use United miles to book this than with cash. I set the website up to show us flexible dates in a 30-day range, and so right here, even though I selected May 2nd as my date, you can see 2 weeks in the past and 2 weeks in the future. As we look at the calendar here, you can see why I decided to go with the date of May 2nd instead of like May 12th, where the prices are 100,000 miles just to go one way per person. I always want to look at the lowest price days first, and I was very happy that May 2nd was the date that was going to work for me. It does say May 3rd and May 4th also have 35,000 points, but those ones weren't going to work because it didn't have the right flight that I wanted for the route. This was the only day that had a flight leaving after 5:30 a.m. that was still going to cost only 35,000 miles. I was eyeing the flight that had a departure of 6 a.m. with a stop in Denver for 3 hours. Hey, that's great because there's a Centurion lounge there, so I definitely thought that was a good option, and it got in at 2:40 p.m. to Tokyo. There was one that that was going to go through LAX. That one left at 10:56 a.m., which was much better than 6, but it was getting into Tokyo a little bit later in the day, and we didn't really love that, so we decided to go with this 6 a.m. flight. Now that we had the outbound flight selected, it's now time for the inbound. Ideally, we would have liked to have one that was coming back late May or very early June, but that just didn't work out. That one was going to be just right around 100,000 points to book something like that. I know that not everybody is going to have as much flexibility as I do. I'm self-employed, and so I can work from anywhere in the world. So we just decided to stay 1 week longer than we expected to, which worked out way better for us, so that we only had to spend 35,000 miles for this flight. When we scroll down from the calendar, the routes will start to pop up, and you can see why I'm flying into LA instead of into Phoenix. That's because there's a non-stop flight from Seoul, South Korea into LA. That is perfect. I mean, we did have to catch a flight from LA to Phoenix, but I mean, just for this one flight on United, it worked out perfectly. And when I searched up flights from Seoul, South Korea to Phoenix, they were all pretty much in those 100,000 point range, and so just didn't really work out at all. Figured we can catch a pretty cheap flight from LA to Phoenix. There were 2 non-stop flights from Seoul to LA that day, and there really wasn't any debate here. Of course, I'm going to go with the one leaving at 2:40 p.m. instead of the one that's leaving at 8 p.m. just because, I mean, you check out of your hotel at 11 a.m. anyway, so we decided that was the best time to leave the hotel and go to the airport so that we could sit in the airport lounge while we're waiting for our flight. I don't know what we would have done with our whole day if we decided to go with that 8 p.m. flight. And it was also arriving just before 10 a.m. in LA, so that gave us plenty of time to pick whatever flight we wanted to get to Phoenix. Now that we have booked both flights, it was time to put in our information, the frequent flyer numbers, and the TSA pre-check and global entry numbers. And now we can see the final cost of the flight, 140,000 United miles plus $88.30 in taxes and fees. Wait, $88? I thought I was getting this flight for free. Well, I am getting it for free. Once we put in our credit card number, I put in my American Express Platinum card, and because I have the selected airline as United Airlines for my $200 incidental airline credit, as soon as I made the purchase for this flight, because I hadn't used up all $200 of that credit, I actually got that reimbursed to me. So not only was I able to get these 2 round-trip flights with just credit card points, but the taxes and fees that every single person has to pay, whether they're paying with the flight in cash or they're paying with their flight in points, you still have to pay those. Well, I actually didn't even have to pay them, so that just makes it even better. So now we move into more of the math section of this video to find out the cents per point valuation that I had. So if we go into the spreadsheet here, I do have 2 calculations. One is for United miles, the cents per point for that, and we also have the Chase points. And the Chase points I spent a little bit lower than the United miles just because we had 6,000 United miles in our account before this process started. So for United on the trip to Asia, the cash price was $3,313 for that Hawaiian Airlines flight that was going through Honolulu both times. I honestly think that the price for this flight was a little bit higher than that, but that's what Google Flights said, and so I'm just going to go with it in this example. The United miles that we paid for this trip was 140,000, and the taxes and fees were $88.30. I could make an argument that this is actually zero, since that was completely covered for me with my American Express Platinum card, but we'll just keep it at that right now. So the cash minus fees comes out to $3,224.70. That means I spent 322,000 cents, and the cents per point is 2.3. So we got 2.3 cents per point on this redemption if we're talking about United miles. I would say that is pretty good, and if you actually compare this to the cash price of the United flight, it would be significantly higher than that. Moving on, we have the Chase calculation here. I wanted to make 2 separate ones just because we spent less Chase points than United miles. As you can see here, I still have that Hawaiian Air flight in for the cash price, and with the points that we spent, it was 134,000. The points and fees are going to stay the same at $88.30, meaning the cash price minus the fees are also the same, and then the cents per point here is 2.41. The most accurate cents per point calculation that we have for Chase Chase points is from the points guy. He says that Chase points are usually valued around 2 cents per point, so I made it just over that, so I think this is a good redemption here. And of course, we had to get back to Phoenix, and the cost for those flights were just under $200, so actually, let's go in and add that to the calculation. So for the entire trip, the calculation for United miles is going to be 2.16 cents per point, and for Chase points, it's going to be 2.26 cents per point. Still pretty good. This was my first time redeeming points for an international flight, but it definitely will not be my last. In fact, I've already booked another flight to Europe with Amex points, so that'll be another video that's coming out on the channel, so make sure to subscribe if you want to watch that. And if you want to see me and my wife's full trip, we make travel videos all around the globe, so if you are interested in that at all, make sure to check it out down below, and I appreciate you watching this one. I'll see you in the next.